I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about finishing. That's right. Finishing what you started. Because here's what I realized, that many of us will go ahead and get started on a major project, or we get started on our goals and our dreams. We make the commitment to make something happen. And all the while, there's all this excitement at the very beginning. And then we start putting in the work. We start putting in the energy. We start putting in the effort. And then we start encountering some obstacles. Or maybe perhaps we find out that the task was way more daunting than we ever thought it would be. And we start finding excuses to give up. We start finding excuses to literally quit. And so I want to challenge you today with this message to get you to actually finish what you start. That's right, to finish what you start. And so I'm talking to those of you who maybe you've started something, some type of project. Maybe you had the intention to writing a book and you started putting the outline together. You even came up with the title. You started thinking about what some of the stories were that you're going to put in the book, but you haven't finished the book. And so I'm going to challenge you to make sure that you actually finish that. Maybe for some of you, you were thinking about going back and getting the degree. You actually enrolled, you started taking some classes, and you've completed quite a few of your classes, but you still have some more classes to complete so that you'll be able to actually get that degree. And I'm going to challenge you to go ahead and do whatever you have to do to be able to actually finish this class, this degree that you're pursuing right now. I want to push you so that you actually finish. Some of you right now, you made a commitment, a lifelong commitment. That's right. And you said, till death do us part, for better or for worse. And now you've been considering quitting. You're considering giving up on this lifetime commitment that you made called marriage. And I'm going to challenge you to finish. I'm talking about finishing what you start, honoring your commitment when you said, for better or for worse, until death do us part. I'm going to challenge those of you who maybe perhaps you've got a goal, a dream, something that you wanted to do. I don't know what that thing is. Maybe you made the decision that you wanted to become debt-free. Maybe you made the decision that you wanted to lose 20 pounds. Maybe you made the decision that you wanted to do a career change. Maybe you made a decision that you wanted to start a business. I don't know what that thing is for you. But what I do know is all too often, most of us, unfortunately, we don't finish what we start. You see, we're real excited at the very beginning, and we lay out this magnificent plan, and we can see things working out, and then we actually start putting in the work, and then we start encountering some obstacles, then we start encountering some difficulties, and one by one we begin to drop off. And I'm telling you, what I'm sharing with you, I'm not immune to this. I myself have found myself where many a times where I maybe perhaps started something and I did not finish. Maybe I started reading a book and I did not finish. Or maybe I started a major project and I did not finish. And there's one particular thing that I'm in the process right now of crossing the finish line. And I've got to be very open and transparent with you. As many of you know, literally next month, I am releasing my book, Show Up for Your Life, 7 Principles to Living an Extraordinary Life. And I'm telling you, if you're listening right now, you definitely want to get your hands on this book. I can assure you that when you read that book is going to have the ability to literally transform your life. And so you want to be keeping an eye out. Wait till you see some of the posts and availability so you can go ahead and order the book. Pre-ordering is going to be made available very soon. But let me be honest with you. You see, when I finally decided to go ahead and start the book, it was about 1.5 years ago. And I had a sense of laser focus. I'm talking about laser focus. I sat down, I came down with the title of the book. I outlined what the chapters of the book were going to be. I determined what all the stories in every single one of those chapters were going to be. I determined what quotes I was going to include. I determined what exercises. And I'm telling you, I started to write. I was writing. I was working along with the editor that was working with me. And literally in about 3.5 months, I knocked out the entire book. The entire book was completed in about 3.5 months. Now, here's the crazy thing. Completed the book in about 3.5 months. But then here's what started to happen. I started to overanalyze certain things. I was trying to debate on what direction I was going to go in as far as whether I was going to go ahead and go the traditional publisher route or whether or not I was going to go the self-publishing route. I started speaking to different book agents who are sort of telling me about potential book deals that they could possibly get me based off of my platform and so forth, and really kicking around and going back and forth, trying to determine what route that I was eventually going to take. And let me be honest with you here. Let me help you to realize this, that literally because of the fact that I lost that laser focus, because of the fact that I got caught up in all the other things, as far as whether I was going to go self-publishing or whether I was going to go a traditional publishing route, and caught up in like the book design and determining which book design I was actually going to go with, determining also, you know, who was going to do the foreword. And by the way, Les Brown, one of the top 5 motivational speakers in the world, my mentor, wrote the foreword for the book, and also determining who I was going to get endorsements from and so forth. But getting caught up in all these other frivolous, mundane activities, I'm telling you what ended up happening is I essentially put the book down for about 1.5 years. For 1.5 years, I delayed myself crossing the finish line. And maybe perhaps you could relate to that. There's something that you were working on, something that you were looking to do, and you started the project. I mean, you started off with laser focus. You started off with a whole bunch of excitement. And unfortunately, once you actually started and you started diving in and trying to make things happen, all of a sudden, at that point, you find yourself getting sidetracked by frivolous activities, or you flat out just lost the motivation. And now all of a sudden you went from moving and having strong momentum to now all of a sudden everything has come to a screeching halt. And let me just tell you, if that has happened to you, I can assure you that you're not in the boat by yourself. Why do I say that? Because here's what I know. The majority of people, first of all, won't even start. They won't even start on the major project in their life. They won't start as far as going back to school and getting the other degree. They won't even start with making the career change. They won't even start the book. They won't even start the weight loss program. They won't even start to pursue their goals and their dreams. They won't even start. So first of all, just the fact that you started, you have already broken away from the rest of the pack. But here's what I need you to realize. The majority of people, unfortunately, if they do start, the majority of people, unfortunately, do not finish. They don't finish. And so I want to challenge you right now to think about an area in your life in which you have an incomplete project. Maybe it's something as simple as reading a book. Maybe it's getting the degree. Maybe you have a product that you've been trying to bring out to market, and you've been saying now for months and maybe even years that you're going to go ahead and get this product out, and you still have not finished. You just haven't managed to finish it. And maybe perhaps you've been writing down this whole book proposal, or maybe you've been coming up with this whole business plan, and you just haven't finished. You haven't actually brought this business to fruition. And so you've been spinning your wheels, and if someone were to ask you right now why you didn't finish, you could probably come up with a bunch of great, elaborate excuses. Maybe you say, well, you know, I got sidetracked. Well, you know, I recently got married. You know, we had kids. Well, you know, I don't have as much money. Well, you know, I just started this new job. Well, you know that, you know, now I don't have as much time as I used to because I'm helping my mom out. Whatever the excuse is, it's still an excuse. Somebody once told me, and I like to think of excuses when I think about this. Somebody once told me, hey, you could put lipstick on a pig, but guess what? It's still a pig. And so you can dress up an excuse as good as you want to make it. You can make it sound as awesome as you want to make it. But guess what? At the end of the day, it's still an excuse. It's still something that's keeping you away from crossing the finish line. And so I want to disrupt that conversation that's going on in your mind, that conversation and that story that you have been telling yourself and justifying why you haven't crossed the finish line. The story you've been telling yourself to justify why you haven't completed to get the degree, why you haven't completed the exams to be able to get the certification that you're after, why you haven't finished the book, why you haven't finished getting your business up and off the ground, why you haven't actually gotten the weight off, the same 10, 15 pounds you've been trying to lose for the past 5, 10, 15 years, okay? I'm talking about that. I'm talking about you being honest with yourself and evaluating that place in your life where you literally just haven't finished. And I want to challenge you right now to actually finish, because I'm telling you right now that when it comes to sports, when it comes to like maybe the Olympics and sports and so forth, there's a whole lot of importance that's put on finishing first. But when it comes to life, a major part to being a winner in life, a major part to being a champion in life is to just finish. So it doesn't matter if you finish first. It doesn't matter if you finish second. It doesn't matter if you finish fifth, sixth. It doesn't matter. What really matters is that you actually finish. Why? Because the majority of people don't finish. And so I'm telling you, in life, It really doesn't matter what place you finish in. The bottom line is, can you finish? Because I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of people maybe can crack the code to start, but very few have the ability and the capacity to actually finish. Are you listening to me right now? I'm talking about to actually finish, to finish what you started. And so I'm telling you, as some of you know, one of the things that I did for quite a few years was actually buy homes and fix homes, real estate. And, you know, the term that is used nowadays is flipping property. So, you know, back in like 94, 95, and up until this point, I have a nice real estate portfolio. But there's a time that I actively was buying properties, fixing them, and reselling them. And let me tell you something that I always found. Whenever I would hire the contractors and they would bring in their crew, you know, when these guys came in, they would make all types of promises. Okay, Andy, we're going to meet the deadline. We're going to do everything. Hey, you already outlined everything you want done. We're going to rip out all of the flooring. We're going to put down some new tile. We're going to rip out the kitchen. We're putting in a new kitchen. We're going to put central AC into the house. We're going to change some of these windows. We're going to change out some of these doors. We're going to change the vanity. We're going to retile the bathroom. And I mean, there'd be this entire list. And let me tell you, these guys would always start off. I mean, they would start off so strong. They get in there on day one. They're so happy they got that first deposit. I mean, demolition, they'd have sometimes 5, 6 guys in there demolishing everything in there. They'd whip the tiles out. They'd whip the kitchen out. They'd pull down the drywall. They'd pull all the vanity, pull all the tile out of the bathroom. And I'm like, the way they start, I'm like, my goodness, these guys are going to probably beat the schedule. And then lo and behold, it always never ceases to fail. They start the project at lightning speed. They started with all this momentum, and then sure enough, all of a sudden now I'm swinging by the job to come check up, and all of a sudden nobody showed up to the job. Or all of a sudden the momentum has shifted. And so they started off so strong, but yet they're not making things happen. And oh my goodness, the most difficult time was when it was time to finish. And in the business, a lot of times we call that punch out. I mean, that's the little minor little items that actually have to be completed. I'm talking about when someone has painted and a little bit of the paint has actually gotten on the tile, or a little bit of the paint has gotten on the window seal, or a little bit of the paint has gotten on another section. I'm talking about the parts where there's a slight imperfection in the drywall. When someone has put crown molding and something is slightly off. I'm talking about fixing all the little imperfections. I'm talking about actually finishing. And let me tell you something. Here's what happens all too often. They just can't finish. All the way to the point where oftentimes I get so frustrated that oftentimes I just go ahead and say, hey, listen, here's the rest of the money. And then I end up having to hire somebody separately to come in and actually finish the job. And the reason why is because, you see, it requires a different type of skill set to be able to actually finish. And so what happens is most people don't have that level of focus. Most people don't have that level of drive. And most people get caught up and they're normally fatigued when it's time to cross the finish line. And so all of a sudden now they just can't get to the other side. And so many of these people, unfortunately, when it comes to life, you're not normally going to be able to hire somebody to come in and finish for you. You've got to build that mental toughness yourself. You got to develop that skill set, that ability to be able to finish what you actually started, the ability to finish, to cross the finish line, even when you're frustrated, even when you're tired, even when you feel like you've absolutely hit a wall. I'm talking about that ability, the ability to still be able to focus and block out the pain, the ability to still be able to focus and be more committed to crossing the finish line than you are to your excuses. I'm going to say that one more time. You got to be more committed to crossing the finish line than you are to your excuses. And it makes me think about one of my perhaps most memorable Olympic moments, and perhaps one of the most highlighted Olympic moments was a gentleman by the name of Derek Redmond. If you might remember, if you don't remember the story, you will when I get into it. But Derek Redmond, he was in the 1992 Barcelona Olympics. And he was running the 400-meter sprint. And this was during the semifinals of the Barcelona 1992. And some of you may recall seeing this story highlighted by Nike, or the story being highlighted by Visa. And it's even been highlighted by the Olympic Committee. But what happened is Derek Redmond, he was favored to actually win this race, and he was come in as a favorite. He had already gotten a gold medal in the past, and he unfortunately he had experienced a lot of injuries, but he believed that, you know, that this was his time. And so he lined up at the starting line, and then they went ahead and shot off the gun. Bah! Gun shoots off. Boom. Derek Redmond and the rest of the guys just jump off the line. I mean, they're running, and they're running. And as you see them coming around, all of a sudden you can tell something terribly went wrong with Derek Redmond, because he pulls up and immediately he grabs his hamstring. And the reason why he pulled and grabbed his hamstring is because, unfortunately, he tore his hamstring. Now, mind you, he is literally in a situation where he cannot even run anymore. I mean, he's in tremendous pain. Now, the rest of the guys who are running the race, they're continuing to run the race, and they basically have crossed the finish line. Now, the average person who's in that situation, knowing that there's absolutely no way that they can even place in the race, the average person would just go ahead and lay down and wait for the paramedics to come, especially a professional athlete, to try to avoid having any additional injuries. And so Derek now decides that he's just going to start hopping on one leg and start trying to make his way around the actual track. Now, something amazing happens, because when he does that, at first, the people who are sitting in the audience, they're looking down and they're like, man, this guy is absolutely crazy. And they're looking at him in many ways out of ridicule, like, what is he doing? But then something happens in the meantime. While they're looking at Derek, all of a sudden, in the crowd, coming out of the crowd, there's this man that's sort of pushing through and trying to get through the crowd. And there's a commotion. And so now the cameras are spotting that there's some man that's coming down from the stands trying to push through the crowd. And when this man approaches the track, naturally security is trying to keep this man off the track, because he shouldn't be down there at this level on the track. So the security is like saying, sorry, sir, you can't come on the track. This is for authorized officials only and the athletes. And this man has such determination. And then they finally realize that this man happens to be Derek's father. And so Derek's father makes his way past the security, and then now he makes his way over to Derek, and he puts Derek's arm around his shoulder, and his son is literally hopping on one leg, and he's helping his son to actually be able to make it around the track, because he realizes his son does not want to stop. His son is looking at him like, Dad, I have to finish. And you could tell his dad just wants him to stop for a second, but he's like, no, I have to finish. And so his dad's like, okay, I'm going to help you finish. And so they start going around the track, and now the whole mood, the whole arena, everything changes, because people realize that this is a really, truly powerful symbolic moment. They realize that this young man has the commitment. This young man has the dedication, that even though he's not going to place in the race, he realizes that he absolutely needs to finish. And so you have this amazing, spectacular a moment that happens where everyone is watching his father actually help him around the track and help him to actually finish. And this ends up being a very powerful moment and a very powerful lesson. Because let me tell you once again, I'll tell you this again. You see, in life, it's not always about finishing first. It's not about finishing second. And it's not even about finishing third. It's not about trying to get the gold medal. It's not about trying to get the silver medal or the bronze. In life, if you want to be a champion in life, it's about finishing. I'm talking about finishing what you started, finishing what you said you were going to do. Even when you don't feel like it, even when you're in tremendous pain, even when every single part of you is saying, wait a second, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to cross this finish line. And it makes me also think about, I have two friends in particular that I remember literally sitting down and interviewing them. They both ran a marathon. Now, for those of you who've run a marathon before, I know a marathon is about 26.2 miles to run a marathon. One of my friends, her name is Lauren, and another one of my friends, his name is Jim. They both ran a marathon, and I had an opportunity to sit down and literally interview both of them to talk about what it took in order for them to be able to complete the marathon. And both of them, of course, had one thing in common, where they both put in a tremendous amount of practice and preparation to be able to actually run and complete the marathon. But here's what was very interesting, and something that I learned from both of them. Here's the interesting thing. that when both of them were describing the actual day of running the marathon, they both talked about how they prepared so much, and they started off just feeling absolutely wonderful that day. I mean, they felt like, you know what, that this is going to be something that they can make happen. And then all the enthusiasm that they had about when they were halfway through the race, that enthusiasm started to go away, because now the fatigue is starting to come in, and they're starting to realize that they're only halfway through, and they're starting to realize that there's so much more to go. But yet they still have this commitment and this drive. And then, but here's what they both told me. They said, when you get to the 20-mile mark, this was their truth. This is what happened for both of them. When they got to the 20-mile mark, they said, Andy, you don't understand. It felt as if I hit a wall. Both of them said that. They said, Andy, I had places in my body that was aching and hurting. I had muscles that were aching and hurting that I didn't even know if I had those muscles in my body. My friend Lauren, it was so funny. She said that when I got to that 20-mile mark, she said it was just like the cartoons, Andy, where you got the one angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder, and the angel's telling you, you can do it. Come on. You're at the 20-mile mark. You only got 6.2 miles left. You can make it happen. And the devil's like, no way, just give up. Your lungs are about to explode. There's no way you can make it happen. And so they both talk about when you're at the 20-mile mark, that it is absolutely one of the most difficult barriers to try to break through. And so I asked both of them, I said, well, help me to understand, how did you do it? And they said that number one, the first thing is that no matter what you do, no matter how difficult it is, no matter if you got to come down to a screeching halt, no matter if you just got to be dragging your feet, if you go from running to jogging and now you're basically down to a crawl, whatever you do, they said you do not stop. Because they say if you stop, the likelihood of you starting back up and finishing is slim to none. And so many of us, unfortunately, we've already broken that first rule. We've stopped. All right, we've broken all the momentum. We stopped trying to get the business off the ground. We stopped trying to lose the weight. We stopped trying to write the book. We stopped trying to finish up the degree. We stopped. And so the worst thing you can do is actually stop. So if you stop, I'm going to challenge you right now to make sure you pick it back up again. And I don't care if you've got to start off at a little crawl. I don't care if you've got to start off jogging. But whatever you do, go ahead right now, this moment, and at least start again. Start the process, because you lose so much momentum when you stop. And then my friend Jim, I said, well, Jim, how did you keep going? He said, Andy, it hurts so bad. He said, I don't think you understand how bad it is. He says, when you get to that point, you almost don't have any more control of your body. You literally lose control of your body. Some people have been known to lose control of their bowel movement. Some people have been known to literally, I hate to be descriptive, to literally urinate on themselves, because they can't even control themselves, because their body and their muscles and their mind is so fatigued, and now they're just releasing themselves. They can't even control it anymore. And I said, well, Jim, what did you do? He said, I had to keep telling myself, one foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other. And sometimes when you're working on a major project, and when you look at the task, it looks so daunting. And you almost feel overwhelmed. You're like, man, I want to write the book, but I don't even know what to start. What's the title of the book? What's the chapters? What stories am I going to include? What stories am I not going to include? Do I self-publish? Do I actually get published? I mean, do I get endorsements? What's the ISBN number? How do I have file with the Library of Congress? All these things are going on in your mind. Well, if I start the book, do I start off if I start the company, do I start off of an LLC? Do I start off as a corporation? Do I get a website? How do I go ahead and create the website? Where are going to be my products? Where are going to be my services? What should I charge? Or whatever it is, oftentimes there's so many steps to the process, and we can a lot of times just feel so overwhelmed. And feeling overwhelmed can get us to quit. But the way that you cross the finish line is to remember 1 foot in front of the other. 1 foot in front of the other. So if for some reason you've stopped and you're trying to cross the finish line, what you want to do is you want to break down the remaining task into actual palatable and brokenable steps. And you've heard this expression before, not to say that anybody's going to eat an elephant, but it just gives an explanation because the elephant is such a tremendous, huge animal. And it says, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Well, how do you finish your project? How do you finish and move forward and close and actually be able to cross the finish line? Well, guess what? It's one step after the other. One step after the other. And so you've got to break it down into small, palatable steps, because if you can do that, it's going to allow you to actually be able to cross the finish line. And let me tell you the last thing, and this is going to help break a lot of people from bondage. I know that this literally helped me, because this is something that I still struggle with right now to this day. And I'm talking specifically to those of you who consider yourself to be perfectionists. I mean, you want things to be absolutely perfect. You want things to be just right. And your perfection, this pursuit of perfection oftentimes keeps you from finishing things. And newsflash, just to let you know, unfortunately for many of us, perfection is often rooted in fear. It's the fear of rejection. It's the fear of criticism. It's the fear of failure. And so we spend all this time trying to make it perfect because we don't want anybody to criticize us. We don't want anybody to judge us and to think that we're not good enough. And so we are so busy trying to make it perfect that we don't ever get it done, right? And so Sheryl Sandberg has a quote, and my wife loves to quote this, and here's what she said. She said that done is better than perfect. And so some of you, you're pretty much already ready to cross the finish line. I mean, your project is 99.9% done. As a matter of fact, you could release it right now, this moment, but the only reason why you haven't is because you're still busy trying to make it perfect. And let me tell you something. I want to give you a news flash. It'll never be 100% perfect. The perfect building has never been constructed. The perfect business has never been built. The perfect product has never been created. The perfect book has never been written. The perfect service has never been provided. Why? Because there's always room for improvement. There's always a place that can go. So stop trying to think and believe that your product, your service, or whatever it is that you're pursuing right now, that it's going to be perfect. No, rather get it done, because done is better than perfect. And so here's what I know, that right now you got something that you need to finish. I mean, you've had this thing parked on the sidelines. And there's some people that are waiting for you to make this thing happen. They're waiting on your book. They're waiting on your business. They're waiting on your product. They're waiting on your service. Tomorrow's not promised. You don't know if tomorrow's going to show up. And so the question then becomes, are you willing to cross the finish line? And if you're going to make the commitment to cross the finish line, understand this, that many people who start with you won't necessarily finish with you. Understand that the majority of people won't even start, and perhaps the two most difficult things you will ever do in your life is, number one, to start, and number two is to actually finish. And so I'm going to challenge you right now to make the commitment to yourself to actually finish. And once you make that commitment that you're going to actually finish, don't allow yourself to get overwhelmed. Just remember, one step after the other. One step after the other. Break it down into palatable steps. And then finally, remember that done is better than perfect. You can get this thing done. That this is the time right now to cross the finish line. This time to cross the finish line with your book, cross the finish line with your diploma, cross the finish line with the business, cross the finish line, lose the weight, cross the finish line, get out of debt, cross the finish line, pursue your goals and your dreams. I don't know what it is, but this is the time to finish. This is absolutely the time to finish, because in life, it doesn't matter if you come in first, second, third. Doesn't matter if you get gold, silver, or bronze. The only thing that matters in life is that you finish. And so I want you to finish. Yeah. Finish what you start. This wouldn't be Andy Henriquez if I didn't end by telling you this. Show up for your lives, ladies and gentlemen. Because if you don't, nobody else will. All right. Well, excellent. Well, listen, I am so happy that all of you have tuned in and joined me for the Show Up for Your Life motivational live stream and conference call. And I want to share a couple things with you before I go ahead and open up the lines. Number one, if you would just do me a very quick favor. If we're not already connected, I would love to get connected with you. And there's a very simple way that you can do that. You can go to showupforyourlife.com. And when you get there, you'll see a banner. You just simply put in your name as well as your email address. That's going to allow me to send you a free instant motivational message, but it's also going to allow me to continue to stay connected with you and provide you with resources that I believe is going to allow you to show up for your life and take your life to the absolute next level. Now, the second thing is that I'd love to share with you. I would love for you to join our special online community. We have a private group for those of us who are in the Show Up for Your Life private community, online community. Very simple for you to go ahead and join this group. Just simply open up a separate web browser and type in showupgroup.com, showupgroup.com. And when you type in showupgroup.com, just simply put in a request to be able to go ahead and join the group, and we'll be more than happy to go ahead and invite you into the group. And for those of you who are watching via the live stream, when I open up for the Q&A, if you would like to pose me a question or just give me a shout out or give me your feedback from tonight's message, you can actually post your questions, your comments, and your feedback in the Show Up group. That's part of the reason why it's created. Also allows me to stay connected. Now, here's the other thing. Some of you have been trying to cross the finish line. I mean, you really want to finish, but you understand that part of finishing is having a level of accountability and having someone to sort of guide you and mentor you and coach you to the finish line. And I would love to be one of those people that guides you and mentors you and coaches you to the finish line. Both myself and my wife, Coach Kaz, we have a 6-month coaching program. It's called the Make Your Move 6-month coaching program. It's designed specifically to start really be able to help beginning business owners as well as beginning business owners to really be able to take their business off the ground or to get their idea or their business started and start creating some true progress during the course of 6 months, where we cover 6 different modules, and you'll be part of a community of other individuals. If you would like to learn a little more about that 6-month coaching program, and you would like to have a very quick 15-minute conversation about that coaching program and to see if it's a good fit for you, you simply want to go to yourpowercouple.com. Once again, that is yourpowercouple.com. When you go to yourpowercouple.com, just simply fill out the actual online application. It'll take you a whopping maybe 2 minutes to fill out the application. And someone from our office will be in contact with you, and we'll be looking forward to having a conversation with you about you potentially joining us for the 6-month coaching program. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. You want to make sure that you move absolutely fast, because registration for the 6-month coaching program actually closes within the next 48 hours. I just want to make sure that you know that, because we only open enrollment at the beginning of the coaching, then enrollment is closed for 6 months, and then we open it up again. And so our first coaching session is going to be next week. And so if you want to join us, there needs to be a sense of urgency. You want to make sure that you put in your application immediately at yourpowercouple.com. Now,